Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 21 of How to Renovate. Wow, we really are getting into the 20s of the episodes now. That is quite something. When I started the podcast, I just didn't realize how quickly this was all going to go. I hope you're finding the podcast useful and it's giving you loads of information and advice on how to renovate your home better. If you are enjoying the podcast, please go and subscribe or like or share or rate, good or bad, hopefully good. And it just helps other renovators find me, find the advice that I'm giving out, and find all the help and resources that I create for all of you as well. So thank you in advance, and I hope that you will do that for me. In this episode, we're going to be talking about 6 things you can do to reduce stress during the construction phase. And oh my goodness, it can be stressful. When I survey renovators, they often say that the stress of it all is one of the hardest things to deal with. But I always say that if you plan really well, it will alleviate a lot of that stress. Obviously not everything, unexpected things come up. Renovating is not easy. It's an expensive thing that takes a long time. So it's not going to be easy, but you can plan and you can mitigate and you can hopefully start to enjoy it, because it can be an enjoyable thing, seeing something that you visualized come to life and that you get to live in, that gets to support your daily lives and make you and your family's lives better, and a place you can invite people into and celebrate and entertain. So I really hope you can enjoy the process as well. It can be stressful. There's loads of negative things said about renovating, but it's something you need to go through to get to a really real amazing end goal. So hang in there, listen to this episode, perhaps do a few of these things to help you reduce that stress during the construction phase. Everything I teach about renovating falls under my 5-pillar process, and this episode and the information in it falls under pillar 4, practical management. And you can learn more about the process at the end of this episode. Let's get started. So, number 1 is do your planning. I mean, of course, it's all I bang on about all the time. It's plan your renovation from the start really well, months in advance, years in advance, as advanced as you can get. If you plan it and you know what you're aiming for, you know what you want, and you're familiar with the build process, the renovation process, you will know what to expect. You're managing your own expectations, and just by knowing what to expect, you're almost immediately reducing the stress, because you're perhaps not expecting things to go wrong, but when things do happen and perhaps surprises come up, unexpected costs, it doesn't take you by surprise. You know that it was likely it was going to happen, and you've put things into the plan that can help you with that. You've put backup options, and you've put contingencies, and you've put alternative plans. So plan, and it will alleviate so much of the stress of the renovation process. Moving on to number 2, which is maintain good communication. So good communication and good relationships with your team, so with your builder, with all your professionals, your contractor, your architect, your structural engineers, basically everyone involved in the process. Establish good communication and good kind of relationships with them, because I strongly feel that if your relationships are good with people from the outset, you have no choice but to have a smooth running renovation, because If you can find a way to communicate clearly, you can respect one another, you can address any issues reasonably that come up, then you're off to a really good start. So I've said this before in the podcast, but establish from the very, very start an agreed way of communicating. And I've said this before, like, I love a WhatsApp group for the team. So anyone involved in the project gets added to the WhatsApp group, and anything to do with the project is announced or recorded on the WhatsApp group. So everyone's all on the same page at the same time, for any changes, for any updates, for any deliveries, for any meetings that need to happen. And as we're on the subject of meetings, regular meetings are such a good thing during the project as well. So that also reduces stress. So regularly meet up and check in with everybody, check in where they are. Everybody knows where everyone is at various stages, which also reduces the stress of perhaps wondering why something hasn't been done, or where something is, or when a certain thing's going to be done. If you're having regular meetings, perhaps weekly, and everything can be discussed and you can ask those niggling questions, then that just kind of puts you at ease. So you know when things are happening, even if they've been delayed for any reason. If you know that it's being dealt with at some stage, that almost instantly reduces that feeling of stress and anxiety. So I really do believe that you need to keep the communication and the relationships good. Moving on to number 3, which is set realistic expectations. So I'm sure you already know, but construction projects, they often encounter challenges, delays, budget blowouts. You know, all of these things can just be part of a renovation. And if you set realistic expectations on your timeline, on your budget, on the outcomes of the renovation, then it really does just reduce that feeling that everything might not be running on time or to budget, because you can plan as meticulously as you like. But I've found so many times in renovation projects, there are so many people involved and so many different things need to come together at any one stage for that progress to keep happening, that I think that's why they're quite notorious for delays and going over budget, because there are too many people that have to do the exact things they need to do at the exact time they need to do it, for everything to run perfectly smoothly. And that is not always going to happen. People get ill, they get sick, delays happen, supplies run out, people take holidays. So many things can happen that might delay your project and might cause hiccups here and there. And I think if you set realistic expectations that, you know, I guess one of the ones we see on renovation shows all the time is, oh, we want to be in by Christmas. And as soon as they say Christmas, you know that they're not going to be in by Christmas, because something will always happen. And I think as long as you set your expectations realistically, you can be prepared and you won't have kind of your hopes shattered. I think you have to have some flexibility, you have to be adaptable, you have to be ready to make some changes as you go along, as you might come across some things that you weren't expecting that add to the budget or add to the timeline. And I think just focusing on finding solutions is how I like to approach any project. So problems will always come up, and have realistic expectations that the problems will come up. And then where you can have control is where you can have the attitude that you will be ready to find solutions. So those solutions might take longer than you originally wanted, but always have the mindset that when a problem comes up, like, what is the solution? There must be a solution to this. You may have to compromise a bit. and just focus on the progress. Focus on the solution, speaking to your team, working together to find the quickest way forward or the best way forward or the way forward that best suits the budget, and keep moving forward. It's all about progress, making tiny little adjustments constantly as you move through the process to the budget, to the timeline. And I think if you just go in with realistic expectations and be ready to do that, then that will just take off so much of the pressure. And number 4 to reduce stress is to just have control of your budget and set up your finances. So I covered a little bit of this just in the point before, but just make sure that your finances are set up before you begin. So make sure you've got your cash flow arranged, make sure you've got your contingency set aside, and then make sure that you've got a emergency fund set aside as well. Because I've worked on many projects where even the contingency gets blown straight away. You know, something might come up right at the beginning of the project that takes up the entire contingency. And you have to be aware of this almost before you begin. And if you set your budget expectations and you realize and come to terms with the fact that there probably will be overruns and there will be things that come up that you'll need to deal with that you weren't expecting to pay for. And if you go in with the attitude that you may very well need to compromise on a few things, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get the exact dream home that you wanted. But if you go in with that mindset and be prepared to compromise a bit, have some backup options in mind, perhaps when you're doing your budget planning or your project planning or your style boards, have option A, have option B that might cost a bit less. So just go in knowing your cash flow, knowing your contingency, and expect budget overruns. And then when they don't happen, I mean, how great is that? Then you get to have everything that you want. But I think just knowing that renovation projects are notorious for budget issues is a good place to start. It's again just all about going in with eyes open and managing your own expectations. So having those buffers of your contingency and your emergency fund again will just alleviate that financial stress if you know that things are set up should you need them. And then number 5 is set up your ordering timeline. Oh my goodness, I can't stress this one enough. So many items have really long lead times. I mean, items that you really could need right at the start of the project. So you almost need to start ordering them way before your project even starts. So these could be items like taps, for example, or shower fixtures, things like windows and doors. You can't even order those too far in advance because generally you need the measurements of the built window and door openings before any window companies will even come on site to measure and start manufacturing the windows and doors. So managing that ordering timeline is really important for a smooth process. And when you have a smooth process, you have less stress, right? So if you work backwards from your proposed finish date and find out the timelines for those major things that you need to have on site at certain times. And again, I'm going to go back and say this is where you need to know the process and know the process of the renovation, know the process of the build sequence, because then this all falls into place here, because then you can do your ordering when you need to do it, which then will make your project run more smoothly from start to finish and then alleviates the stress. So you're having a really lovely construction phase that you can enjoy, and you can enjoy the progress, and you can enjoy the reveal and of each stage as it starts coming together. So I really would say look at the lead times. They can be really long. Set up that ordering timeline and just front load as much as you can. Order as much as you can. Make your decisions on everything that you possibly can as early as you can. So tiles, flooring, taps, kitchen. Just have a really strong idea of everything you want. And you can do that by doing the mood boards and the style boards. Do that all in the planning phase. Pillar 1, the planning phase, right at the beginning is when you need to do this. And then that will set you up for a really stress-free renovation project. And I'm going to quickly chat about the style boards because I find style boards so useful. I use them right from the start of a project, right through to the end almost. I have a masterclass on style boards. It's called How to Create Strategic and Intentional Style Boards. And it is not just about putting some lovely pictures on a piece of paper. The way I create and use style boards so strategic and intentional. They serve as a useful resource, a really valuable resource, right from the start of creation, right through to the end when you start styling your fully renovated home. So if you want to have that really useful resource that will help you and you can refer back to it throughout the entire process, go and check it out at southplacestudio.com/masterclasses and you'll find it there. So go and have a look. These style boards really are invaluable. And if you follow the sequence of how I show you how to create them in that masterclass, it'll be such a valuable resource for you to have throughout. So do go and check that out. So moving on to number 6. Oh my goodness. After all the stress of planning the renovation and getting to construction phase and doing all the ordering, you need something to celebrate, right? So number 6 is celebrate the milestones. By the time you get to the first milestone, which is probably, if you're doing a ground floor extension, is probably having the foundations laid and get what they call getting out of the ground, you will probably be quite exhausted by then and you need something to celebrate. So enjoy the process throughout. I think just kind of realizing these important milestones and just taking a moment to celebrate them just takes the stress out of the whole process a bit and makes it, the whole thing, just a lot more enjoyable. So I'm going to do an episode as well on the various milestones to celebrate, because you need to do that and you need to enjoy this, your vision coming to life, because it's not many times in our lives that we renovate. It's quite an expensive thing to do, and mostly people will only do it one time, and it most likely will be after purchasing your house, the kind of second most expensive thing you will ever do in your life. So just go in ready. Try and appreciate the process. Try and reduce the stress of the process as much as you can by doing some of the things in this episode, and just celebrate the milestones and take the breaks and appreciate where you are and appreciate it all coming together, because it can be exhausting and emotionally demanding. So take those breaks when you need them, celebrate when you need them. And that brings us really nicely to the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys and girls, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now. For more information on my 5-pillar process for successful renovation, you can go directly to southplacestudio.com/pillars, where you'll find an introduction to the process which covers each of the pillars and what they cover. We also have a number of other free renovation resources. Go now to southplacestudio.com/freebies. I have created some amazing freebies for you there. There is one on the process, like we just said. There is one on planning permission. There is one on kitchen design. There is another one on lighting planning. Go and check those out. There's so much free information there to help you with your renovation.